Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dive Deep. I'm Shelby Cornett, and I'm the ministry assistant at Cambridge City Christian Church. And this is Danny.
Good morning, Shelby.
Good morning.
Or afternoon, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I guess it is afternoon now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, as we record. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll
Yeah.
post it in the afternoon, too.
That's true.
We procrastinated a little bit.
Yeah, that's all right. So how's things in Shelby's domain?
Great.
Great. Good. Good.
Yep.
So you said you used, this will be a shameless plug.
Yeah.
You used the church app to take your notes
I
this week.
did.
So what was your experience? Because we're really encouraging people to use that.
So before I used it, I would have said I like the hard copy and taking notes by hand because I'm just like that. I'm like an old lady, even though I'm way younger than you.
Mm-hmm.
But
What? Okay. I'll just let that insult speak for itself. And all right, go ahead.
But this past week, I forgot to grab a sheet. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I can use the church app. And I took way more notes. And I liked it because I can go faster with my thumbs than I can write.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like texting,
It is like texting.
like you young whippersnappers do, right?
Yeah.
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 I talked to a kid one time. This has been years ago when texting was just kind of getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And he was
Like
always,
when I was born.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
It was, no, it was a little later than that, but you were probably only like 10.
Yeah.
But I asked him, I'm like, how often do you text? And he tells me, oh, I send probably about 2,000 or 3,000 texts a day. I'm like, what
Oh,
in
my
the world?
goodness.
Because I mean, he just, we were driving somewhere and he just, yeah, and it was like the whole time he's texting.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I'm like, wow.
I've thought about, like, when we get older, our thumbs are going to be messed up.
Yep. Yes, they will. So you like the app?
I did like the app.
Yeah. It is handy, and the
Yeah.
nice thing is you can save it.
Yeah, so
Like
you can
it
save it to
saves
like a
it.
journal.
Yeah, there's a journal, and you save it within your app.
And you can look at it in calendar form or timeline form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a nice little feature.
It is. I might start
I know.
using it.
I know we have a few people that use it, but it is handy because then you don't have to worry about carrying around notes and stuff. Although,
Or losing it because
yeah,
people don't lose their phones because
yeah,
they're important.
that's right. Yep.
And where can they download the
And you,
app?
thank you, Travis, for asking. You can download the app
That's
at the
cheesy.
Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Yes. Yeah, just type in Cambridge City Christian Church, and
And it has our logo.
it has a little circle logo, and it'll pop up.
Yep.
So, yep, it's right there.
And you can fill out your My Response card on
There's
there.
everything on there.
You can see the bulletin
see
on
the
there.
bulletin.
You can do your giving on there.
Yeah. We have everything
You can
on
send
there.
prayer requests.
Prayer requests, yep. So and I think this is really important to bring up here. I mean, we're being a little goofy about it, but
Yeah.
but like for those maybe that are, if you're watching with us today, in your you watch online, it's an amazing tool because
Yeah, it is.
you don't have to physically be here to get everything that you could get if you came in the doors. So definitely a
Yeah.
tool you have to have if you're online with us.
Yep.
Yeah. So there,
All
our
right.
shameless plug
Our
is over.
advertisement is done.
Yes. All right.
Too bad
Let's
we're
get to
not.
what people are watching this for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, it's just like when you watch TV, right? You got to get through the commercials.
Through the ad,
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, anyways. So we're still in the Mark series.
Yeah.
And this week was called The Target Audience.
The target audience. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
And the point was following Jesus enlarges your world.
Yes, it does. Yeah, this passage comes from Mark 2, and we only looked at 5 verses, so it was 13 through 17. And there's a lot in this passage.
Yeah,
there's
was.
a lot here. And I really enjoyed the message. I feel like I've gotten I've gotten some feedback here since Sunday about it. I think it was a good message because it was a good reminder for all of us of the importance of not leaving people behind, and that can even include ourselves. That God sees the potential.
Yeah.
In every person, even the most vile and worst person you can think of.
Mhm.
And again, we talked about attaching labels and how dangerous that is, and that's kind of what I just did there, right? By saying vile and
Right.
offensive. But that's just what we do, and Jesus never let a label get in the way
Mhm.
of calling somebody to follow him. And we looked at it was Levi. We looked at Matthew, which is interesting because we're in the book of Mark,
Yeah.
and Matthew wrote the book of Matthew, another
Mhm.
gospel. So it's kind of neat to see
But he's
Mark
Levi.
talk. Yeah, that was another.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was his. Yeah, that was his Hebrew name.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, it's kind of interesting. One writer talking about another writer.
Yeah.
But when we look at this, it's what's really interesting is we see that Levi was a tax collector.
AKA a thief.
Mm. So are you saying all tax collectors are thieves?
No, I'm saying based off of what you said
I
Sunday
sure hope
morning.
the IRS isn't watching this.
I mean, we do get taxed a lot.
Mm. Oh boy.
Not saying they're
This is not a
not saying
political
they're a thief.
podcast, just so you know, okay? You could do your politics on the side, Shelby.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
really into that, you know.
Yeah. But no, I mean, but it is funny though we say that because back then it was kind of a political thing.
Yeah.
I mean, some things don't change. Back then, a tax collector was kind of one of the arms of the government, and I mean, obviously, and so people didn't like tax collectors, but they really didn't like Levi because he was either, we're not entirely sure if he was a Roman tax collector or if he was indirectly a Roman tax collector through Herod, who was the Jewish king that was a kind of a minion of the Romans. So he, nonetheless, he was a Roman tax collector, one way or the
Right.
other, either directly or indirectly. So he was seen as a traitor.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
because he was Jewish
Mm-hmm.
and he's helping out the bad guys.
Gotcha.
So he was ostracized, and so people didn't want anything to do with him. And so that's why this story really jumps out. And I shared Sunday about how when we look at this story and we see Matthew following Jesus, it's like, oh, okay, he called Matthew. Okay.
Mhm.
But for the readers, the original readers of this, they would have
Mhm.
caught this is like a big deal.
Right.
I mean, this is a big deal. I know in my life group we were talking about what comparison would this be today, and it would kind of be like it's different, but it's not. But I think within our cultural context, it makes sense. Not necessarily maybe in the moral context, but anyway, it would be like Jesus asking like a child molester like to follow him, or it would be like
So it was a big deal.
it was a big deal, or it would be like if you want to bring it into the American context, it'd be like Benedict Arnold being asked to follow Jesus. You know, which if you don't know who Benedict Arnold was, he was a traitor to the U.S. during the Revolutionary War. So, so that's what he did. He asked like the lowest of the low to follow him, and something that was brought up in our group too that I had not really considered before is that it wasn't just the outsiders. It had to have been really hard for the disciples.
Yeah.
Because they were Jewish. So
And they're part of their crowd now. Or
yes.
he's part of their crowd.
Yeah, so they were first of all, the first reaction had to have been, "What are you thinking, Jesus?" And then the second reaction is, "Oh my gosh, he's going to associate with me."
Mm-hmm.
And as we something else too, I really appreciate. We had a really good discussion in our group.
I
But
took a lot of notes on that section.
yeah, we had a really good discussion, and later on, when you look, in verses 15 and 16, he goes and Jesus goes and hangs out with the tax collectors and sinners, and it says that the religious leaders. Let me read here in verse 16. But when the teachers of the religious law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with tax collectors and other sinners, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with such scum?" Okay, so there's a label, but something that I never considered before that someone in my group brought up. He said that maybe they went and talked to their disciples because they weren't eating with the tax collectors and sinners. Jesus was, but maybe they were kind of like standing off to the side. I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
So that's why they went to them, because they knew that they weren't happy about it too. So, I mean, Jesus is not only going against culture, but he's potentially even going against his own followers
Right.
in this. So it's really quite the circumstance here that
Yeah.
we see.
My notes for that section was I pushed a button. We had Jesus hangs out with the wrong crowd.
Right. Yeah, that was the.
And
kinda, yeah.
I thought,
Mhm.
aren't we all part of the wrong crowd in
Mhm.
one way or another? Because we all sin and do things that.
Sure.
I mean, we're not
we are.
Jesus.
We are in the wrong crowd, but I think you have to remember this was the wrong crowd in relation to other people. So,
Mm-hmm.
like today, who would be some wrong crowds today that maybe culturally we would see as the wrong crowd?
Like murderers.
Murderers,
Yeah.
traitors.
Mm-hmm.
But you could even bring this into your family. You might even, or at school or in a workplace. There are some people that we just think of as being in the wrong crowd.
Right. And
yeah,
that's we had healthy people don't need doctors, sick people
right.
do.
Yeah, Jesus said that in
And-
verse 15, I think it is. Yeah.
Like
6,
today, we hear people say that they don't feel like they're welcomed at church or they don't feel but like they
Mhm.
belong at church because people in the church judge them for things
Right.
that like, don't they need to be at church?
14. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody needs.
Oh, I've had people come up to me through the years and like why is so and so going to church? Do you know what they do at such and such or what they say or whatever?
Mhm.
They're hypocrites. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, and I've said to them, I'm like, well, where else do you want them to be?
Mhm.
Like, would you rather them not go to church?
Right.
Would you rather them not come in contact with the gospel of Jesus?
Mhm.
Some people, I think, it makes me wonder. Some, I think,
Right.
if they were to be totally honest, some would say, yeah, they don't deserve that because they're bad people. That's the point.
Right.
That's why we need.
Right.
And that's what Jesus is saying right there. I was wrong with the verse. It's verse 17. That Jesus says, healthy, I think you already said it, but healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I've come to call not those who think they are righteous. In other words, those who think they've got it all together,
Mhm.
but that I've come to those who know they are sinners.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know what's scary about that verse, Shelby?
Is that people think that they're doing everything right?
Well, yeah, what's scary is that the people that think they have it all together, Jesus didn't come here for them. Now
Yeah.
we know that he loves everybody and he wants, and then and that there is a sin in thinking you have it all together, okay?
Mhm.
But what I'm trying to say is that if people think that they don't need Jesus' help, then
He didn't come to help you anyways.
well,
Or
that's not why he came. He didn't come to try to argue it out with people who think they've got it all together.
Mhm.
Because see, that's what the Pharisees were.
He came to help people who know that they need it.
Right. Yeah. See, these Pharisees were trying to engage him and have an argument with him to be the right type of person. That's not what he came for.
Mhm.
He didn't come for those kind of people. He didn't come
Mhm.
to try to argue it out with people to show that they're doing things right. He came to help those who know that things aren't right, that things are wrong in their life. And so it's kind of there's a lot of, I would say there's two different types of people who are like this. So you have the one group, like we see here, the Pharisees, who are religious. They think they have it all together. They've created these rules.
Mhm.
But then you have another group who don't believe in Christ at all. I don't have a problem. I don't need to put my faith in Christ. So that would be a non-believer.
Mhm.
Okay. Jesus is here saying, hey, I am who I am. I've come to save you. Ultimately, we know later on in the gospel that he dies on the cross for our sins and resurrects. He proves that he is who he says he is. But when it comes down to it, you have to admit that you need him.
Right.
And these
He
guys
can't do it all.
Well, he does do it all by himself.
Right.
But we have to
We have to accept
the
it.
gift. You have to accept that gift.
Mhm.
And there was this group didn't. They thought that you followed these certain rules. And actually, this coming Sunday, I'm going to talk some more about the Pharisees because there's a longer text that we're going to look at. But I wanted to read a quote from let me see here. It was from William Barclay, and I read it Sunday. but it talks about Pharisees and legalism, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this because
Okay.
whenever I do these sermons, I mean it's one way. Like, okay, I want to know what you thought about this.
Okay.
So William Barclay said, to the Jews, religion was a thing of endless rules. People lived their lives in an endless forest of regulations which dictated every action, and they must listen forever to a voice which said, "You shall not." Now, how would you feel living within a workplace, a family, or in this case, a religious establishment that always says, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that?
I would probably feel like angry and trapped, and
Yeah.
I don't like. It's
No,
not very freeing.
I think that's a really good way. Trapped. I like that. I like that word because a lot of the Jews, I think, did kind of feel that way.
Right.
And so Jesus, well, look at Matthew in this story. Matthew's trapped by these preconceptions that people have.
It's
of him.
almost like having like super strict, mean parents.
Yeah.
Like
Waiting
constantly hearing, "No, you can't do that."
Yeah,
no,
and
you
waiting for everything you do wrong to just
can't do-"
crack down on you. Yeah.
Instead of any kind of positive reinforcement at all.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Barclay's saying here. For many Jews, that's what they experienced. It was a trap. They were trapped in it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
And Matthew was kind of a victim. Like he was so not only was he potentially trapped because of his faith, but then when he decided to do things that were supposedly against his faith, he was shut out. And see, this is kind of what we talked a little bit about this last week in the office. Cults.
Yes.
Remember, so
I was just starting to think about that.
so cults, like what are some, like, there are several signatures of a cult, but we talked about one. Do you remember one of the signs of being a cult is that you
I don't remember.
that like if you're in it and you don't follow the rules, then you're kicked
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Like there's no grace, there's no mercy. It's like, and that's just one of the
Like
signs.
you follow
There's-
our rules or you're out.
right. And then when you're out, it's like you are cut off. Like there's a lot of cults of what they'll do is, like, let's say a mom has a child in the cult and the child decides that they don't agree with it. Like the mom is not even allowed to talk to the child.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
like they're like, and when I say child, I mean usually by that point they're an adult.
Right.
But but yeah, they're just pushed out, and that's kind of what we see here a little bit, isn't
Right.
it? Like they're.
But then if you're in that situation, it's almost better to be.
Yeah, but he didn't probably feel that
Yeah.
way.
Right.
Yeah. This wasn't at all in my notes, but I mean, it really gets me to be thinking a little bit. I mean, of some cultish tendencies within the Judaism that Jesus encountered. Not to say that Judaism is a cult; it's not. But
Right.
but the sect that Jesus was dealing with the Pharisees definitely had some cult-like tendencies. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's what we talk about in the office is
Yeah.
cults.
Yeah, we talk about cults and yeah.
Yeah.
No, we really don't, but it came up last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. It's a new line of thinking I've never considered before. So all right, what else, Shelby? I know I went off the deep end there a little bit.
I don't know that I had.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you did say something about life is valuable.
Yeah.
All life is valuable.
Yeah.
And I wrote that in all capital letters 3 times with lots of exclamation points because
So
I
watch
feel
it.
like that's important.
It is important. All life is valuable. Even the life that we don't necessarily like. And this goes from the womb to the tomb, right? I mean, this goes from a preborn, an unborn child. And I will tell you, and I know that there's differing opinions within the church, but I've even started to shift my opinion a little bit on the death penalty over this, because I do think that there are some.
I'm iffy on that one.
Yeah, because I used to be very pro death penalty, but as I've considered more and more about it, now I don't want to go off on a real big tangent here, but I do understand, and I know what some people will say in response, that there are two different things between taking an unborn child and executing a criminal. There's the guilt and innocence factor and all that. I get all that. but I do think it is getting, it's harder for me to understand. I wouldn't say I'm there totally yet, but I think where I'm at right now with that is like it should only be done in the most egregious of circumstances. Like it shouldn't be done as easily as maybe we do it now.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I know that's kind of off on the side there.
Yeah.
But yeah, life matters, and Matthew's life mattered to Jesus, even when everybody else didn't think it really did.
Yeah.
So,
So the people that we talk down about and yeah. It's just,
well, and not only did Jesus reach out to us, but we are also commanded to obey him. When Jesus said to Matthew, "Follow me," it was not just a term of, "Hey, just come and hang out." It was learn from me and obey what I'm going to teach. What I'm going to teach, and so now we are commanded to reach out and do the same thing. I shared another quote from a guy named C.T. Studd. He was a preacher back about a century or two ago. He said, "Some want to live within the sound of a church bell or a chapel bell, but I want to run a rescue shop within a yard of hell."
I loved that.
Yeah. I mean, I love that because he's saying we need to reach out to the people who are left behind. Now don't involve yourself in the patterns and the habits of those who are sinning. Don't think it's okay to do that, but get as close as you can so that you can reach out with the gospel. And that's what Jesus did. Jesus just didn't go and hang out with all the holy people down at the synagogue. Now, he did go and teach at the synagogue, but his target audience, that's what we're talking about here, right, was not the healthy, it was the sinner. So Jesus lived that out in his life. Yeah.
As we should in ours.
As we should in ours. If we're following, if he's our Lord and our master, then we do what he says. Yeah. Yep.
That was all I had in my notes.
Good discussion, Shelby. I know I did most of the talking that time, but
You're a pastor. It's your job.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a kind of a bad attribute sometimes that comes along with what we do. So
Yeah.
yeah, well.
Oh, well. All right. So next week
Next
is
Yep.
what is this week?
We're going to talk some more about, well, we're talking a little bit about the Pharisees, but we're going to be talking about the importance of not, when Jesus, there's several instances when Jesus, he's talking with different groups of people who, again, the Pharisees, they come up with these rules. Like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And the danger that comes when we try to fit in, when we're trying to fit in with the rules, and we don't look at the truth. And so the sermon's called When Truth Collides.
Okay.
And we're going to look at how when truth collides with culture, and culture can be in our, outside of the church, but it can even be a culture in the church too. So that's kind of what we're going to look at next week.
Cool.
Yeah. And we have a special guest speaker too. So
Yes.
we have a missionary coming to speak for a little bit too. So it's going to be a great Sunday.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff this week.
Yep.
All right. So we'll see you next week, and we'll talk about the truth collides.
Good job, Shelby. I'm glad you remembered.
remembered.
That. Good job.